Welcome to Improve Your Impact and Improving Your Quality of Thinking. This is hosted by IBASA and EPI. It's a series of webinars we have every month. Today, I'm pleased to say we have an awesome speaker, Louis van Rhyn. She is a social entrepreneur. That's where I'll start because she speaks to my heart. That's her drive. That's her movement as a person and her passion. And she will be running today's session. And Mpo as well from EPI, my apologies, from IBASA, who's the MD. Thank you very much for making it today. And at this point, really, please feel free to have your videos on and chat. At this note, this is where I will now also hand over to Louise to get us started. And please, I look forward to our session. Hi, Louise.
Good morning. Thank you very much for that warm introduction, Tobeka. So I think you can stop sharing the screen and then we're going to see whether we can get a sense of connection. So today is about, the topic today is improve your impact by the quality of your thinking. And what we know for a fact is that our thinking depends on the context. The quality of our thinking depends on the context. So in a session like this today, we want to do what we can to create a real sense of community and a safe and enjoyable space for all of us to do our best thinking. I'm also going to ask that you participate as actively as you can in the chat. I know what happens to me when I'm on a webinar or on a call like this, and my video is off. The first thing I do is I start to multitask, and I'm involved in lots of different things. And we know that our brains are not designed to multitask. So Harvard has done some research around this, and they found that we lose up to 10 to 20% of our IQ when we try to multitask. So given that today's session is around quality thinking, I'm going to invite you to see whether you can be present and in the session for the next kind of hour that we have together. So the ideas today is going to be very much informed by my experience of being a partner of Nancy Klein's in South Africa, and I'll tell you a little bit more about Nancy Klein in a minute. And we're going to look at what do these ideas mean for us as leaders, for ourselves, but also what does it mean in our role as advisors to other people. And I'm committed to ensure that you're going to that there's going to be some clear takeaways. Now, I want to warn you now that we are going to go into breakout rooms soon. And in those breakout rooms, it is going to be very important for you to have your video on, because we're going to ask you to be in a kind of quite an intimate conversation in the breakout room. So, so that's just a warning. It's going to come soon. But thank you. Before we do that, I'm going to give you, and yeah, so my commitment is to give you as many takeaways as you can. One of them is for you to experience something that every single time when we do this, and I do this literally hundreds of times a month, every single time there will be a few people in the room who go, oh my goodness, I had no idea about the power of this process. So I want every person to really kind of get you involved in this conversation. I'm going to ask every single one of you to think of an issue that you are currently grappling with. I'm going to ask Christoph and Paul and Tobeka and everybody to think about something in your life that you are grappling with, that's nagging at you, that's causing you some anxiety, that's making you think, oh, I have to do that thing, but I'm not quite sure how to do it, and I'm not. So now, every now and again, I find people who say, no, I don't have anything like that in my life. And then I think, I wonder whether you are truly alive, whether you're breathing, because if you're breathing, chances are you have something that's not quite working out the way you want it to work out. And we're going to start the session with a process that is called discovery writing. I'm going to put the slide up for you so that you can see it. So we want you to think about an issue that you are currently grappling with, that things are not quite working out the way you want to work it out. So the discovery writing is an opportunity to write in full sentences in response to a few questions. And the idea here is for you to write in order to discover what you think. So you're not going to start writing thinking that you know what the answer is. You're going to write in order to discover what you think. And here are the 5 questions. Now, you're going to get out of this exercise or this process as much as you put in. So if you're going to sit there and literally take the time to write in full sentences to these questions, I promise you that there's going to be some value. So here are the 5 questions. The first question is, what is the issue or the challenge? And I want you to write. So I'm just going to take you through the 5 questions, and then we'll create 5 minutes of silence for everybody to do the discovery writing. So let me just quickly talk you through the 5 questions. So the first question is, what is the issue or challenge? And the invitation is for you to write in a full sentence what the issue is, not just in bullet points. The second question is, what are you trying to achieve? Thirdly, who are the people contributing to the challenge? And number 4, what is causing the stuckness at the moment? Usually when things are not working out because there's some sense of stuckness. And then lastly, what do you need to do in order to move this forward in some way? So those are 5 questions. And we're going to give you 5 minutes to do that. Rebecca, we're all going to switch off our videos and we're going to mute ourselves and create a thinking space for ourselves. So we'd love you to make the most of this opportunity. And I'll keep time. When the 5 minutes are up, we'll let you know, and then we'll continue. So good. Hello, everybody. We're back. I hope you all had the opportunity to participate in that process. And I'm curious to know whether anybody made any discoveries. Anybody who want to say something about the impact of doing this process, of responding in full sentences to those 5 questions before we continue. And this is the opportunity to have participation, and that you literally can just unmute yourself and then we'll give you an opportunity to speak. So anybody want to say something about the experience of answering those 5 questions? Dabo.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Mm.
Okay, you know what? I've got a problem that every time when I think about it, so it looks huge. It's like it's not solvable. But as I was busy writing, I'm actually starting to discover a process of solving it. I'm not sure if it will work, but there is some confidence building in terms of saying, okay, maybe this is what it means to solve the problem.
Ah,
So it's
Dabo,
an action that I've taken to start to solve the problem just by writing it down.
Fantastic. You're making me very happy, because that's my experience, is that this process of articulating in full sentences our latest best thinking around an issue is in itself part of finding the solutions. Just doing that. But the secret here is to write in full sentences and to give yourself a time and a space to think things through without any feeling of being rushed. So that's why we gave you 5 minutes and 5 questions. Thank you, Dabo. You made me very happy to hear that. Anybody else want to share? And you can just unmute yourself and we'd love to. KB.
Hi, everybody. For me, it was very easy to write the first question, but then from question 2 to 3, it really challenged me, because then I had to identify what exactly it is that I needed to achieve by doing that. And then the following question in terms of what exactly is blocking me in achieving that. And I realized that I started sort of externalizing the problem. Then I went back and said, but look, is it really the people or the conditions that I'm referring to, or is it really within me to do that? So I think that the process is actually quite nice, and it makes you think far deeper than we normally just do and say the problem is this and then try to find a solution without going through those questions.
Thank you very much, KB. And that's another, so you just prove it, you're all kind of making the argument here that taking time, giving yourself time to think through the issue in a systematic way is often part of the solution. But the reality is that very few of us ever allow ourselves that time. We run from one thing to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, and we really have the opportunity to just take one particular issue and to think it through. So, so thank you for those people who have already spoken. Dorothy, I see you unmuted. You want to share something about what you found?
I discovered that when I looked at the stuckness, that actually the problem isn't, start my video. The problem isn't pressing at the moment, and I'm actually worrying about something I can't do much about at the moment.
Exactly. And again, so now that so can I just, before you unmute yourself again, Dorothy, that discovery, the fact that you actually can't do anything about it at the moment, what does that do for you? What's the value of that discovery?
Well, number one, I'm going to stop worrying about it or pondering over it the whole time, where I'm waiting for a future event to happen, which may or may not happen. Once that, so for example, I might have a new job. So I'm waiting to get confirmation whether or not I'm going to get that job. And I think I should worry about those things when I get that offer.
Exactly. And so here's the thing, Dorothy, while we are putting effort, while this thing is going around in our heads. I don't know whether any of you have ever had that experience, that things are going in your head and it feels like your head is involved in some kind of activity, but you're not getting clarity, and you're not and you're not moving forward, and you're not clear about what to do or not to do. But what we've discovered is that human beings don't function well in those kind of situations. Human beings need to take time to articulate, and we make sense and get new insight from the process of articulation. And sometimes the insight is just what Dorothy said to us. Sometimes the insight is, and this really is it's not valuable for me to spend any more impact on this, any more time on this, because it's just stealing my joy, which is a great discovery, because now Dorothy can take those other 50 issues that are on her. So we've all got this load of issues on our shoulders, but we don't have time to think them through. So they're just all nagging at us, and they are costing us energy. So we'll go to Vino and then Teba, and then I'm going to continue, but it doesn't mean we don't want to hear your voice. We just want to make sure that we get everything done we want to get done. So Vino and then Teba.
Hi, Louise. Thank you so much for that insightful this thing. But I think that the first question is a very, very, very fundamental question. And it's firstly, it starts with the what. Okay. And the what goes as you asking yourself the question, and that gets very much into introspection. And I think the fundamental word there is that you're not asking about a problem, you're asking about the challenge. So that puts you in a different mindset. And that is the type of process that, or that first question fundamentally gets you the juices start flowing, because you got to think about the what and the challenge, and that gets you to be able to sort of articulate the other 4 questions with a little bit more ease, but not exactly totally more as comfortable as practice will prove. Thank you.
Thank you, Vina. Thank you, Vina. And I think that the point is, I don't know whether that's the right pronunciation of your name, but I'm an advisor and a consultant to many people. And what I've discovered is most of my clients don't know what their issue is.
Yeah.
So they want me to come help. And then when I say, what's the issue? They go, they can't articulate it. And one of the things I have to learn how to do is to get them to articulate the issue so that we know what we're working on, rather than some vague thing that they can't get, that nobody can get their heads around. So we're all going to be frustrated all the way through because we're not able to pin it down. Thank you, Vina. Let's go to Teba, and then I'm going to continue. Teba, your hand is up. You just need to unmute yourself. Teba Thomas. Just need to unmute yourself, Teba. Doesn't look as if Teba is going to do that now. So let's keep going. If maybe there's an opportunity later for Teba to add his thoughts. So, and I really also want to invite you to use the chat function to articulate what you think. Every time we do that, something becomes clear to us. So what I mentioned earlier that what we're going to talk today is informed by Nancy Klein. So let me just quickly tell you about Nancy Klein. And this is just a teaser really, because there's no way I can do justice to Nancy's stuff in a few minutes, but you just get to the scope. So Nancy Klein has written 3 books. And these 3 books have been, without any doubt in my mind, 3 of the books that had the biggest impact on my life, and has had the impact on, I know of literally hundreds of thousands of people who've been impacted by this work. So if you're interested in thinking, these are the books I would recommend. The first book's name is called Time to Think, and it's about the power of listening to ignite the human mind. You're going to get the opportunity to experience some of that today. The next book is called More Time to Think, and then the last book that was written last year is The Promise That Changes Everything, I Won't Interrupt You. So what we will do is we will share these slides so that you've got easy access to those names. Maybe we can also put it in the chat. But if I had to summarize what came out of those three books, and that's a very tall order, but I'm going to try. So the first thing that Nancy said is that the quality of everything we do depends on the quality of the thinking we do first. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I often do things without thinking about it. And then Terence is saying More Time to Think is brilliant and still impacting his life. Terence's latest book, the Promise That Changes Everything you're going to want to buy for everybody in your life. I have bought too many copies of it already. Anyway, the first idea is the quality of everything we do depends on the quality of the thinking we do first. So that's a pretty common sense idea. But then she continues, and this is where it really makes sense. And it's a really powerful idea for us who are in advisor roles. He says the quality of our thinking is dependent on how we are treated by the people we are with while we are thinking. I'm going to say that again. The quality of our thinking is dependent on how we are treated by the people we are with while we are thinking. So as a mother, how I treat my children will have a massive impact on their ability to think well for themselves. As a leader, how I treat my team is going to have a massive impact on their ability to do their own independent thinking. As an advisor, how I treat my clients will have an impact on their ability to think well for themselves. And what I've learned, and I didn't always know this because I have made massive mistakes in my life. Part of the reason why Nancy's work is so powerful for me is because I have been such a poor listener and thinking partner earlier in my life. So I've had to learn this stuff. I've learned that the most generous and respectful thing we can do for ourselves and for others is to create an environment where we can do our best thinking for ourselves and then create an environment for other people where they can do their best thinking. So Nancy, through many years of studying this work, has come up with this idea of 10 components of a thinking environment. We don't have time to do that today, but if anybody's interested, we regularly run courses, and those books describe those 10 components. We're going to create an opportunity now for you to experience some of this. We're going to create an opportunity for each of you to experience what it feels like to be have a thinking partner, someone who create a beautiful space for you to think into, and where you're going to experience this process of articulation being taken one step further. So you're going to experience what it feels like to be listened to by someone in a thinking environment. So we're going to have, Tobeka's going to put you into breakout rooms. I hope you're all going to participate, because this is one of those that you'll get the value by actually, by participating. You're not going to get the value by kind of observing. So this is very much about an immersion experience. So there's going to be 2 to 3 people in every breakout room. Each of you will get a chance to go into a breakout room. And in that breakout room, we're going to ask one of you to be the brave and courageous person who will be the thinker and who will get the most value from the process. I have to say that as well. And you're going to speak into the beautiful listening of 1 or 2 people, depending on how many people in your breakout room. And hopefully there'll be an opportunity for another person to also get a chance, but we're going to start with one person doing it. So if you are the thinker, I'm going to ask you to switch your videos on so that I can see that you're here and you're interested and you want to do that, because we want you to have your video on when you go into the breakout room. So thank you for those of you who've put your videos on. So if you are the thinker, your job is going to be to think out loud, and you're going to speak into someone else's beautiful listening, and you're going to hear yourself speak in full sentences. Then you're going to have another person or 2 people, and their job is going to be the listener. So I want you to, if you need to take notes around what we want the listeners to do. So the listener, we need you to listen compassionately. What do I mean by that? I mean that listening compassionately means that you are going to listen so that the other person feels, this is, we've discovered that there are key performance indicators for compassion. We want the other person, the person who speaks, to feel seen, heard, and loved. Now, you may think that that's not possible to do on Zoom. I promise you that it is possible to do on Zoom. So that's your job as a listener. You're going to make the other person feel seen, heard, and loved. And you're going to promise not to interrupt them. So I want to say something to you, which I'm always careful, but I mean, I'm working with some people with, resilient and strong enough to hear this message. The brain cannot distinguish between being interrupted and being slapped through the face. So I'm going to say that again. The brain cannot distinguish between being interrupted and slapped through the face. So when you interrupt someone else, the brain experiences this. And I'm going to ask you not to do that to each other. So when it's your job to be the listener, you're going to just listen with curiosity and interest. And the listener is simply going to start the process by saying, it's my privilege. So actually, here's the words. The listener is going to say, I'd love to be your thinking partner as you continue to think about the issue you are grappling with. That's going to be the listener. The listener is going to use these words. I'm going to put these words in the chat. And then the thinker is going to speak into that beautiful listening. So Tobeka's already put it in. I'd love to be your thinking partner as you continue to think about the issue that you wrote about earlier. And the thinker is just going to speak into that space. Now, you don't have to give any background. Don't go kind of, the history. Just talk and imagine that the other person understands exactly what you're saying. So you're all clear. I'm going to ask you to just try this out. Try to do something that maybe this is not comfortable for you. And thinkers, when you get to be the thinker, just hear yourself speak into someone else's beautiful listening and see what happens. So just one last point. If you are the listener, there is no expectation that you will provide any solutions or any answers. Your job is simply to listen. So for once in your life, I want you to let go of your role of being an advisor and a provider of solutions, and don't do that. Just listen. And if the thinker runs out of words, we're going to give you 4 minutes. If the thinker runs out of words, which we hope isn't going to happen, then you can ask one question, and that question is, what more do you want to tell me about this? What more do you think about this issue?
You know what was interesting, Louise, that someone in the chat, I forgot his name now, was talking about in the world that we live in. Who was it? Alex, I think. No, it wasn't Alex. Someone shared something on that in the world that we live in. Do we listen? Ricardo, do we still really take time to listen in this fast-paced life? Anyway, okay. So maybe you'll answer it by the end.
Yeah, and the question that we have to ask ourselves, and what is the cost of not listening? So let's hear from maybe just a few people who participated in this exercise and who've felt the value. And I'm curious to hear, let's start by those of you who were listening, who were thinking. So people who were thinking into someone else's beautiful listening. Maybe just people who were thinking to share something about your experience. Just unmute yourself and then you can tell us what your experience is. And Paul, can you just make me co-host again? Because I was, Tobeka, because I was off and then I have to come back. So Peter Wormersley.
Yeah,
so
for me, it was a relaxed environment because the person you paired me with was a similar age. And the issue I was dealing with was around age and illness. So I felt immediately that it was a safe space. He also wore a fancy hat, which made me relax, and he had a smile on his face. Now, smiling is an terribly important, both physiological and cognitive experience to create that safeness. And I can see you're smiling as well. So it's something I learned in actual fact recently, that it's an important function. So it was too short a time. But what I did find is that I was able to free flow. There was basically just starting to get the essence of what sharing was like, and I felt safe and secure. So I enjoyed it. And I know Nancy Klein's work, and I think I'm going to buy the 3rd book as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. So I know that the time is little. This is part of the challenge of trying to fit in something that's meaningful in a short period of time. But let's hear from maybe one other person who was the thinker, who spoke into the beautiful listening of someone else. Solomon.
Thank you very much. Even though the time was too short, but in our breakout room. I was the thinker and I was talking and somebody was listening. I concur with Peter to say I felt safe, even though I end up finding myself talking a lot about our current unrest in KZN since I'm based in Durban. So talking and thinking was just like a everyday experience of the space where we are, where we have got small businesses and aspiring entrepreneurs who have lost hope, and they are always coming into our door knocking to say, hey, should we even be in this space? Because anyone can do anything, whatever they like, whenever they like, feel like. We thought COVID was the last nail on the coffin, but the unrest did even more impact. So I'm happy with what you are taking us through now, because it's kind of really seeing what will be the impact of the service that we give to those that are knocking on our door now and again, and they're coming in numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think what's really important here that is Solomon, that what we've done in the past and what many of us have done is we've gone into these situations thinking that people are wanting us to give a solution. And that isn't always what they want. Sometimes they just want to be heard. Sometimes they just want someone who's creating a space for them to think through the issue so that they can come to their own solutions. So I said earlier that I wanted to give you an incentive. So here's a promise. If you did a great job right now of listening to someone else in a way that made them feel seen, heard, and loved, I want to promise you that if you go home and you did that with your partner, you may just get lucky. But if you go and listen to your partner with an intention to give them a solution and to kind of interrupt their thinking and tell them what you think rather than creating a space for them to do their own thinking, you are probably going to damage the relationship. And so the cost of not thinking is damaged relationships. One of the reasons why we have so many challenges between parents and children is because parents are not listening to children. And so we're not listening to each other, we're not listening, we don't know how to listen. So that's a critical skill that I want to just leave you with from today's session and I want to kind of help you understand the urgency of doing this. Now, what does this work mean for us in terms of advisors? And we are advisors in different areas of our lives. Many years ago, I came up with this idea of having partnering school principals and business leaders in this collaborative partnership. Some of you may have heard about it. Terence, who's on the call here, is one of the partners. And Partners for Possibility is this idea of, partnering a very experienced business leaders like Terence with a school principal. And I went to speak to Professor Nick Benedel about this. I said, Nick, I've got this fabulous idea. He says, oh, that's going to be a disaster. I said, why? He said, you know what these business people do? They walk into schools and they think they have solutions. And then they want to give people solutions. And Terence, I don't know whether your experience is that that's not a good idea, because none of us can have it. I mean, the challenges in education is so complex. It's almost as complex as dealing with the entrepreneur whose business has just been looted in KZN. These are complex challenges. Any of us thinking that we have a solution and an answer and we're just going to walk in there, we're going to give the solution, we are deluded. So what Nick said is the tendency for business leaders is to give advice before the person who's ready to hear us. And he said, we have to figure out a way. He said, Louise, your biggest challenge is going to be you have to slow down the process to make sure that these business leaders are able to meet the client where the client is at before they give advice. So that's another thing that I want to kind of just introduce you to you. Again, we don't have time to go look at the detail, but as a young consultant, or not, I wasn't that young anymore, but anyway, as a consultant with some experience, I was really grappling with, how do I get my expertise used? What is it that I have to do that will enable me to meet my clients in a place where they are open to hear my solutions and where I don't get all of that resistance? And Peter Block has done some really foundational work around this. He has introduced us to this idea that there are 5 phases of consulting. And typically what happens is we focus on phase 4, that red phase in there that's marked as implementation. That's where we focus our attention. But what Peter has taught us is if we don't do the other 3 phases, if we don't do the contracting phase and the discovery phase and the feedback and decision-making phase, we get lots of roadblocks in implementation. And if we want to give people advice, which is that 3rd phase, but we haven't done contracting and discovery, chances are that our advice will not be utilized, and we won't get an opportunity to support people and have impact. So one of the key ideas that Peter talks about, he says that the delivery vehicle of my expertise is my humanity. The delivery vehicle of my expertise is my humanity. And so it's all around how do we make people feel. When people feel respected and where they know that we believe in their ability to find a solution for themselves, their ability to think find a solution is just dramatically improved. So the other thing I've realized, and this is linked to this idea of thinking, is that nobody wants unsolicited advice. Not my clients, not my colleagues, not my partner, not my children. Nobody wants unsolicited advice. And so what I've discovered, and again, I'm embarrassed that it took me so long to discover that, is that the people around me do not want my answers or solutions. They want my listening, and they want me to support them to find the answers and solutions for themselves. So listening, if we're going to create environments where people can do their best thinking, we need to learn how to listen well. So there are 4 kinds of listening, and these are kind of 4 levels of listening. The first level of listening, which unfortunately is the reality in most of our lives, and is part of why we are not able to have the impact we want, is this first level of listening where we listen to respond. That's the default mode. And in that, there's quite a lot of judgment. So I'm just, I don't think you know what you're doing, and so I'm just waiting for you to finish so that I can tell you what I think. And where we listen because we want to help or guide or instruct. And this level of listening is causing untold issues in the world. The second level of listening is where we listen with an open mind and we seek to understand. So this is where we listen to the facts. We're a bit cautious, we're a bit closed, we're holding back on advice, we kind of guard it. That's the second way of listening. The third way of listening is where we listen with open mind and open heart, where we listen from the heart for what wants to be heard. We also talk about empathetic or compassionate listening, where we are curious and we're authentic and we're open to what the other person has to say. I say to people, it's about listening with soft eyes and no judgment, because we know the impact of judgment on our ability to think. We are unable to think creatively or clearly when we feel judged. And the KPIs for this level of listening is what I said earlier: seen, heard, and loved. Now, Nancy Klein takes this one step further, and she says there's a 4th level of listening where we listen to ignite. This is generative listening. It's where we are committed to supporting someone else's independent thinking. It's one of the most empowering ways of listening, and we still need to listen with soft eyes and no judgment. Now, what Nancy has helped us see is that the mind who holds the problem holds the key to the solution. And as a consultant and advisor, I've realized that the greatest gift I can give to someone else is to help them find that key, rather than me trying to impose a solution on people. So the reality is that we probably don't have time to go back into breakout rooms. So unfortunately, you're not going to get another immersion experience because we're running out of time. But I'm curious to hear whether anybody has any, because I want to make this a bit more interactive than me just talking at you. So let's hear whether anybody has a comment or a thought or a response to what I've said so far. And then I will also leave you with some kind of ways in which you can find out more. So Jabu is unmuted and then Peter is unmuted. Jabu, did you want to say something or was that an accidental unmute?
No, it was accidental, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Peter, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, so for me, listening to those 4 stages reminds me of the theory of you and Otto Scharmer's work as well. So the relationship between her four stage of listening really would be Otto Scharmer would be just downloading. The second one will be basically debating. The third one, dialogue. And the fourth one he has is this emergent moment that is waiting to, as he says, bring forth something which wouldn't be there before. And in that process, all judgment, all emotional issues about anger, fear, etc., has to be let go of. And so this is the you where the uptick comes and the conversation can be taken forward. So my question to you basically is, at some stage, do you actually ever say to the client, well, what about this? And a what if question that comes into it to help them see another dimension, because they might not, I mean, sometimes you know, but generally you don't know sort of situation. So do you ever step in and say, well, have you thought about this? What if? Is that also part of the process?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so that's that's where, where I've learned so much from Peter Block, because, if you think of those 3 phases, the first phase is contracting. That's just to discover, to kind of get an agreement between 2 warm human beings that we're going to do something together. The second phase is discovery. And my job as a consultant is to make sure that we have a shared understanding of what the issue is. The third phase is where we look at what are we going to do now? And I'm not going to offer my solutions until I've given the client some opportunity to kind of find that key. And then once the client has found some, yeah, I might do this, I might do that, then I will ask the client, do you want to know what I think? Now, by this time, the client is dying to hear what I have to say.
Yeah.
And the door is wide open for me to make my contribution. But if I go too quickly with my solutions, guaranteed there's going to be some resistance, there's going to be some doubts and reservations. So I'm interested in what is the best chance for me to be heard. And I know that that's when I hold back on giving solutions and input too quickly. And I really help the client to find their solution for themselves.
And that's interesting, because what you're saying is that you are continuously contracting. In other words, asking for permission to be able to give your opinion, not just jumping in and giving your opinion.
And I think that has been, if you talk to my daughters about what's been the biggest difference in our relationship, is they will say, you don't just give us unsolicited advice, you check that we're ready to hear you. And sometimes they say, no, Mom, I'm not interested in what you have to say. And I go, that's fine. Because when you want my input, you will ask me, and then you're going to be ready for me to give you my input.
Right.
So that's a different way, but it's a much more empowering and respectful way than what we've always done in the past. And I cannot recommend this strongly enough to kind of just hold back. And Otto Scharmer will say that the left-hand side of the U is where we just build the relationship, understand the context, sensing. And then when we get to the bottom of the U, then we contract to say, can I give you some solutions? So that's what we've learned. How best to prepare people to make a lasting impact.
Fabulous. Great, I enjoyed it.
Jabu, any thoughts from you?
Oh, okay, this time I want to talk. You know what? I'm battling to follow the discussion you have with Peter, and I know why, because I'm starting to realize that the subject that we're discussing, it's something that I've never thought about first. And as we speak, I'm starting to realize the things that I did not know, I don't know. And of course, it's like, wow, what's happening here? But my question for now is really around how listening actually takes the form of, or what is the role that listening takes, especially when you do training. You see, I'm doing a lot of training and dealing with all that. And I find that in many cases, even though I'm aspiring or striving to implement all that learning principle, I find that due to our top-down way of doing things in our society, my candidates or my learners, whatever people call them, expect me to have answers. In fact, they expect me to be a pedagogue. And then the more I try to listen to them, ask questions so that they get involved, the more I irritate them. Now, so the principles of listening that we're talking about here now, as I'm trying to follow, it's something that usually create a big disappointment when you deal with all that, especially unsophisticated people who expect that they come into a learning session to be told, not to be asked.
Okay.
Now, how do you...
So let me respond to that. I'm just conscious of time. We can spend the whole day on this. And what I am going to give you is I am going to give you my contact details, and we do sessions on this all the time. But I just want to say the one thing, Jabu, is that we need to contract that with people. We need to say this session is going to be a session where each of you will get the opportunity to do your best thinking and get your best. And I am not going to provide solutions, because my belief is that if you find your own solutions, it's going to be much more sustainable. And then we kind of start, that's where we start. That's the point around starting with contracting. Because if people then say, well, I came for solution, you say, well, sorry, that's not an offer. Because I don't want to give you a solution because I know that that's not going to have impact. I know that the only thing that's going to have impact if you find your own solution. So Jabu, what I will do is I'll give you my contact details, and we'll give you some information, because I'm going to do a session specifically today, this morning, when I prepared for today's session. I've decided that this is not fair to just do this. So I've just arranged a session where we're going to be taking you through, we're going to offer you the opportunity to join a session where you can go through these 5 phases of consulting. And contracting is a really important part of that job. So I just want to create an opportunity for Itumeleng and Lerato, who are both unmuted, and then we're almost running out of time. So Itumeleng, anything that you wanted to say? Itumeleng? Not work. There seems to be a problem with his microphone, so I'm going to switch. I'm going to mute him, and then let's hear from Lerato. Lerato, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
My
thought on it is also directed by the 2 previous speakers, Mr. Jabu and Mr. Peter. Whilst those 4 points, the 4 thinking points that were raised were being presented, I was thinking, surely there's a place for each of those. There's a time where someone comes to you and talks about this and the other thing, and the quickest way is likely going to be the first 2, just to get out of the conversation in the very first place. Because either the conversation, it's something that you've dealt with the person on previously and you do not have the stomach to go through the same process again. I'm thinking that would be your first point of call. Then a new client that you might be getting, who is also your energy level with that new client would probably be more excited to engage this new client with a new problem and all of this. Then you'll probably be using thinking 3 and thinking 4. So is that something that you've thought of? Am I going on my own stream here or something? Thank you.
So Lerato, again, I'd love to have you in one of these sessions, because I am going to suggest to you that level 1 and 2 is always experienced as, well, level 1 is always experienced as disrespectful. And level 1, in most of the cases, lead to relationships being damaged. And even level 2 is a bit challenging. Relationships get strengthened when we listen on level 3 and 4. And what we have to learn how to do is how to do that. And part of the reason why we've if you just look at issues that are not working well and people are not willing to take your advice and people are not kind of implementing what you're suggesting for them, that you suggest they do, most of those is because we listen on level 1 and 2. But again, we don't have time. We're running out of time. So quick input from Cello, and then I'm going to share with you some resources just as a takeaway. Because we do default to level 1 listening. That's what we do, and that's what we have to learn not to do. Cello. Is Cello able to speak? Or does Cello have a microphone issue as well? Cello, can you speak? Doesn't look like it. So let me share with you just a few thoughts around where you can learn more, because this is just, I realized that this was an introduction into a world where this stuff is not the way you normally operate. So here's opportunities to go deeper and learn more. Those 3 books, I cannot recommend them strongly enough. Let me go back to that one book. If you're going to only read one book, I would recommend this third one, the one that says The Promise That Changes Everything. I won't interrupt you. I have bought it for everybody in my life because I think everybody needs to know this. And then what I want to offer you is this website, symphonia.net, and then you just choose Symphonia Leadership Development, and there's lots of opportunities, but specifically an opportunity to learn around time to think. Sometimes people find it difficult to read the book. So we do regularly run these introduction sessions priced for people to be able to attend, to afford that. Flawless consulting is a bit more expensive, but we do regular workshops on that. And then, as I said earlier, on the 15th of September, we're going to do a session specifically looking at those phases of consulting, which is kind of informed by flawless consulting. And if you want to join our mailing list or be in touch or have a further conversation, that's my email address, louise@symphonia.net. And I think we have come to the end of our hour, except if and I'm sure that Tobeka is going to share that information with you again, but I don't know whether there's a final thought or a comment or a question from Christo or Tobeka or maybe Paul.
Great. Thank you so much, Louise. That was very insightful. And I mean, the topic is very deep, if we think about, while I'm saying that and my other 2 colleagues are unmuting, is really about improving your impact by improving the quality of your thinking. And you are a human being in all the facets of your life. And I think we need to put this in our homes, because the children that grow up become the adults who end up becoming the ones who are attending events and saying, no, I'm going to listen to what you're telling me because I don't know. So I think it's all at that micro level of individuality at our family homes, our communities, which impacts us at a national level, at an international level, at a world level. So it's quite a bit there. I don't know if there's anything, Paul, any thoughts on this topic and insight compared to the questions were asked by some of our colleagues?
Thank you so much, Louise, and thank you, Tobeka. I think if I were to say something, we didn't do justice to this topic. We need another session because honestly, there's a lot that we need to explore because as advisors, our role is dependent so much on listening to our stakeholders, to our clients. And in most cases, the failures that happen or the cracks that we find ourselves emerging from the relationship is because of we barely listen. And I'm glad you emphasize those 2 stages, because in most cases, some of us, that's where we operate. When you find yourself under attack, you are ready to defend yourself, so you listen to respond, And the other aspect is that we want to impress our clients so that they see us as reliable source, So hence the whole solution, we present ourselves as solution providers. So it's very important that we have another session that we can unpack in detail for the benefit of our advisors. And I must say it was a fruitful exercise, despite being brief. The next session, we have to block 3 hours, Christoph.
Yeah, or
Honestly.
you can sign up for Louise's workshop on 15th. So Louise, if you want to share with us details about how we can do that,
Yeah.
I can't reach out to you to be able to make use of that opportunity. But what I took away is Peter Block's quote that you shared with us, Louise, that my delivery vehicle of my expertise is my humanity, you know, sort of. So it's not in me being the sharp, the knowledgeable, and very clever guy that can bring you the solutions. It's in the way that I show up with you as my client and the way that I support you in a human way, you know, sort of. So that's kind of really enforcing for me what this is about too. And then of course, if you show up in that way, it becomes much easier to be in a deeper listening mode than one would have been otherwise. So thank you very much. You know, I kind of needed it. It's we are going through difficult times, all of us in different ways, you know, sort of. I know some of the people in the room, you know, sort of some people are working with clients that have lost their businesses. You know, yeah. It's really difficult times. A lot of us have lost dear people in our lives, you know, sort of difficult times for a lot of people. So that humanity is a really important part of what we can take forward also in our practice, you know, sort of. So we are professional, but we stay human.
We are at the end of it, we are human beings who are engaging with other human beings who are emotional and embodied, and we have to learn how to do that well, because it doesn't come naturally, and the role models we've had as we've grown up in our lives have not been great role models for most of us. So with that, I'm going to love you and leave you. I've shared all my information. Please feel free to reach out. If any, yeah, I mean, the session on the 15th is intended to kind of create that foundation, but if you want to arrange another session, let's do that. I have a lot of experience of making big mistakes, and so my learning came from those big mistakes. They definitely don't come because I'm so smart. So thank you very much for the opportunity, Christoph, and thank you, Terence, for making the suggestion.
Yeah, Terence, you were the one that said we have to get Louise. So thanks for that.
Thank you very much. I just joined late, but I got something.
Okay.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And Mpho, is there anything you would like to share with us coming from IBASA? What's happening? Any inside membership?
I think I saw my new chairperson is on board. I just wanted to indicate to our members that we've got a new board. You remember we went through the whole issue of the AGM, and last week it was the inaugural board meeting, and we've got a new chairperson on board, Dr. Billy Silius. I saw his face somewhere. I hope he hasn't left the meeting, but I just wanted to indicate to the advisors who are literally normally attend the session that we do. There he is, Dr. Really. He's our new chairperson. I'll be sending a proper communication to everyone to also emphasize who's our new board going forward. We'll be carrying the IBASA to make sure that, you know, we do not navigate through this uncharted and difficult time, but we are able to realize growth. So I would like to give at least, let me step back for a moment and put Dr. Vidi on the spot to say hi to the team for at least 2 minutes or so that we have. And probably you would also, Terence, it's one of our board members. If he wants to say something, he's welcome to say so, but let's give Dr. Vidi a moment to say something to the members.
Yeah, thank you, Mpho, for this opportunity. And also, Louise, I know your company. I remember years ago, I was also almost part of the Headmaster project. I was allocated to the Headmaster in Doosrand and in the Wilderness, and need to excuse myself in the last moment. Thank you also for my fellow board members, Terence and Vinod. I see your name there, and also the past one, Ricardo. And Christoph and Tobeka, thank you for organizing this. I mean, it's a vital time to start thinking. Normally, we're busy with this rat race, just going forward and going nowhere. And this morning, I had a long discussion with a media house here in our area, discussing issues, business, as Christoph mentioned, about the impact of COVID, and what's business going through at the moment, lost loved ones. I mean, all this stuff, it's hectic outside. And I told him, I remember years ago when he was still here on holiday in wilderness, on the beach, over the December holiday, myself and my daughter was in the sea, in the little pool at that moment. And literally at the next moment, he was dragged into the sea by a strong sea current. And she was literally dragged in, and I was unable to get to her. Almost drowned that day. And I tried to, well, I did manage to get the attention of the lifesavers, and they did come and save our lives. And the guy told me, really, I mean, the best thing to do is just swim sideways. And the next wave will bring you out. So I think it's time now. We're in the very, very stormy water. We try to swim against the sea current. We must swim sideways. We must start thinking. And that's the only way to going forward. We must reorganize, restructure, refocus. And the role of IBASA and Louis, your organization, and Christoph, compliments with Terence with your initiative this afternoon, is vital for us. That we bring this loose ends together for the benefit of the economy of our country. And for everyone in this country, we need to touch base. We need to work together. We need to put our efforts, Louise, together with knowledge and listening skills in order to take this forward. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm busy listening now at IBASA. I already had a meeting or two with Mpo, and my next meeting will be the past person, the past board member, Ricardo, on Monday, and I will soon visit the office, IBASA's office in Pretoria, to see what's going on there. And then afterwards, we will start rolling. The first target set is to train all board members in corporate compliance, get our house in order first, and then work from there outwards to make a difference in the world. But we need partners. We need people like Symphony to take our hands going forward. So thank you, Louise, for this opportunity. I received your mails every now and then, wonderful information. So keep on with the good work. Thank you, and Christoph and Mpo, thank you for the time.
Thank you so much. No, thank you so much, Dr. Billy. I don't want to spoil anything. I don't know if Terence wants to add anything.
I don't think I have anything to add right now. I'm too young in the role of a board member to really make an impact at all, or say something that would be impactful, except that listening will be one of the skills that I need to apply in board meetings as well as in the organization as a whole. Thanks, Louise.
Thank you. So that's it from our side. Just look out to some of the emails that are the email communications that I'll be sending you to members. Pardon me if I bombard you, but one of the priorities that I'm trying to drive is to improve on communication. I'll try to make sure they're well structured so that they don't overload your emails. But the key thing is that there's so many opportunities out there that one is working for the benefit, creating in the interest of our members benefiting from them. So every email communication or newsletter that is going out is intended on creating opportunities for you as our members. So don't take it for granted. Be on the outlook and use those opportunities, especially now there's so many leadership opportunities that are open. Please grab those opportunities and partnerships that we have struck with Services CETA and CEDA, and make sure that you are able to participate in those training and development and leadership programs that have been put in place. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Louise. Christoph, you want to say something before
I wanted to say thank you for those that switched on their cameras during the event. I know we normally are in a webinar format where we all stay silent. But if I may ask those that are still here, most of us are still here. In fact, if you would like to switch on your cameras, it would be nice to see all the faces, sort of, and then you can maximize your screen perhaps also. And if there are smiles, I see there are, Eric, I see you smiling. I'm not sure if it was John, if it was you with the hat that caused Peter to have a good experience, but you are the one with the hat, so and smile now. Or was it you, Lerato, who was the one with the hat that caused you to smile, Peter? Interesting to see what we wear online too. But
it was John.
Yeah. So Tobeka, I mean, I think it's this kind of humanity that we can just take into our space with our clients too. And I wish everyone can take what you've learned today forward with your clients, so that that groundedness that we need ourselves and with the clients that we work with is something we can realize.